again, and welcome to our TV show. I'm Maria Elena Castle. I'm the Communications Director for Atheists for Human Rights. And this is our show today is going to be about all the changes that in people's attitudes towards religious beliefs and how society's attitudes have changed. Our guest today is Trevor St. Germain, and he's going to talk about the changes in attitudes towards homosexuality, as well as some other changes that have occurred in society, and how religion is gradually losing its grip on us. Not fast enough, but there it is. I want to call your attention to our magazine, The Moral Atheist. We publish this 6 times a year, and it's probably the most unique atheist magazine out there because we cover things that no other organization covers. And you can get a sample copy just by contacting us. Our website and email address and everything appears on your screen. Just ask for it. We send 3 free issues as a trial so you can see what we're like. And so, all right, Trevor, let's start by talking here about with the homosexual thing, because we know that the gay community has actually started gaining rights that they thought they'd never have before. Just a few years ago, you'd think it was impossible. So now things have really changed, and all of a sudden we reach a tipping point, and they're all falling into place. And I think we can say that's moving in the right direction.
Well, I think I've really, just personally, been very surprised with how quickly it's moved throughout the country, this whole idea of equal rights for all people in the United States. It's kind of this concept that we've always talked about, but in practice was very rarely demonstrated in a lot of different areas. And you see that with marriage equality. Now that we have in Minnesota and now going throughout the country, this marriage equality, you can really see this change going from legislation that's trying to ban homosexual marriage to now actually laws allowing it.
Well, yeah, even in state after state, the courts in the state have said, no, you cannot ban homosexual marriage because now they're saying it's unconstitutional.
Well, it's never been the state's right, or it's never been the state's action to deny different groups equal rights. What the state is supposed to do is make sure that everyone has equal rights, and they're starting to really realize what their responsibilities are for every individual, for every citizen.
Well, they always talk about human rights, and the Constitution guarantees human rights and all that stuff, and everyone's created equal, and we have our rights endowed by the Creator. And that's actually, there's no such thing as human rights. If you want human rights, you fight for them. They're not endowed by anybody.
There's no guarantee. We create those rights through consensus. And one of the ideas that we had, one of the great ideas that we had, was that we are equal. Now, saying that is one thing, but actually in practice, that is very difficult for a lot of people to do.
They've always said, well, some are more equal than others. Yes, they've always. But no, under the law, that people are not actually equal, but the law should treat them equally.
Right. Like, as I said, it shouldn't be out there trying to discriminate against certain groups. It should make sure that certain groups cannot be discriminated against.
And really, the discrimination throughout history has been based on religious beliefs. And in the gay rights thing, people will say, well, there's always been this belief that somehow it's immoral or against God's law or something like that. But this is the objection to homosexual, whatever, has always been because they thought it was something that God was against, and it was a religious belief. Because there was when you look at it objectively, there is no non-religious reason why you should discriminate. I mean, so who cares how people have sex? My goodness, I think that's about the least interesting thing on the face of the earth. But they've always made a big thing of it.
Well, some groups seem very interested in sexual rights.
What are their minds
people.
on? Can't they think of something else? No, they can't. And what's interesting is that in all these discussions and rulings and everything, they'll talk about it being unconstitutional, or they're talking about being against equal rights, but they never bring up the fact that, hey, it's a religious belief. And you cannot put a religious belief into law, especially when there's no secular reason why you should do that.
Right.
But they never, ever bring up religious belief. Yeah.
Well, you will hear that occasionally, especially
Occasionally.
with the Tea Party and some other groups. And sometimes I'm appalled at what I've heard.
Well, they always bring up the religious belief, but when you're trying to fight against it, it's like the courts. Oh, there was this one judge in California on the proposition, whatever it was, that he actually said that you cannot base your laws on a religious belief, and that's why he supported the gay rights. And that's the only instance I found where the courts have actually said, no, you can't base your laws on a religious belief.
Well, our laws are based really in Old English law.
Which were based on a religious belief.
It did, but it also had this whole idea of property rights and a lot of other
Yeah.
ideas that came about. Also with the idea that the government is the parent of the citizens, and so they can have certain laws and certain rules.
Oh, hey,
But
Trevor, that was the great chain of being. God is at the top.
It was. Well, you had the Church of
rulers
England.
are ordained by God.
Yep.
And then you obey the rulers. There's this great chain of being.
But other
and that's
rights,
where they got that.
Other rights did start coming around, or other types of laws, when we're starting to get into some property laws and other things. It was always, you were right, it always came to the king and the rulers, and they were endowed through a religious proclamation that they were the head of the church.
Because they're the divine right of kings. They came from
But
God.
the idea of some of these laws trickled down to other groups. So you had landowners, you had other groups, and now you had to have laws how to run this. But when you go to true religious law, you look at something like Sharia law, something in some of the Muslim countries, and you see that you can't base your laws upon something that is just a religious idea.
Well, the first law that when the colonists came over here in the colony, the first law passed in the colonies was one that fined you for not going to church. Okay? The very first law. And the fact that they had to fine people for not going to church means that there were a lot of people not going to church, or they wouldn't have bothered with the law.
Right, what's the point?
Okay? So there's always been people who just see reality and they look at this religious belief and they say that really sucks. And it takes a while to chip away at that.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for a lot of people who have these religious beliefs, it's such a fundamental aspect of who they are, and it's very difficult then to start to have some introspection and what do my beliefs mean, especially when you look at other people's rights. And if your belief means that other rights, the rights for other people are to be reduced or ignored or taken away, well then now that is an irrational basis to have a law or any kind of societal
They don't think,
idea.
because they think that, if there's a God and God has made these laws, then it's not irrational to believe that you should follow those laws. And they think they're going to go to hell if they don't follow God's law. And they really believe this. And I don't know how you get them to think rationally. It's pretty hard.
It's difficult, and even talking about some of these criminals who have committed terrible law or crimes and are never caught. It's upsetting for some people to think that there's not going to be any justice at the end. They got away with what they did. They hurt people, and there's no, at the end of life, you're going to pay for what you've done. You got away with it.
No, not really.
And that's reality.
No.
What do you think?
God is the greatest coddler of criminals there ever is. Because they always say that, like there's this one poem about the guy dying, he's in the battle and he's falling. Okay, and the line in the poem says, between the stirrup and the ground, he mercy sought and mercy found. So just as and I've always told us as a kid, if you're dying, if your last minute says, oh God, I'm sorry, please forgive me, all this stuff, you're saved. Okay?
Exactly.
Now, say you've committed this crime and you're standing in front of a judge, and you say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I did this terrible murder and everything." The judge says, "Okay, 20 years to life."
Yep.
And God says, "Oh, welcome." Yeah. God's the greatest coddler of criminals there is.
The idea, though, still is that we talk about a person at the very end, Hitler, coming to God and coming to Jesus, would go to heaven.
Yeah, if at the last minute he says, "Geez, I'm really sorry," and he's in, okay?
As opposed to a person who never even heard of what a God is and just lived a good life, straight to hell. Now, I don't understand how that has any justice, how that can be looked at as right at all.
They're okay if they've never heard of this wonderful
if
Jesus
they have
stuff.
heard, like us.
But if they've heard, then, and if they didn't catch on right away, then they're going to go to hell. Because the minute you hear about this Jesus, you're supposed to say, "Oh, I didn't realize what it was," instead of stopping and thinking, what kind of cockamamie BS is that?
Well, ultimately, a lot of it comes down to a fear.
Yeah.
And it's a fear of the unknown. And death is one of the great unknown. We have no idea what happens after
What?
death.
Wait, no,
Other than-
no. If you want to know what happens, you look at something that dies. That will tell you right there. That's what happens when you die.
What I'm saying with
Yeah.
that is, people ask me, "Are you scared when I die?" And I tell them, "I'm probably going to feel about the same as before I was born."
Yeah.
It's gonna feel about like that.
Just don't exist, that's all.
But people do put some kind of faith,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, because they are scared the idea of forever not being around. Well, all the time before that, they weren't
Yeah.
around.
Well, it's part of the whole survival instinct, the will to live,
Mm-hmm.
because if you didn't have this strong will to live, it wouldn't have overcome all these difficulties
Correct.
through the process of evolution. So only those with the really strong will to live and the means to that survived. And so part of that will to live means you want to live forever. And so
It can.
they just can't deal with the fact that, well, at some point I'm not, and that's you just have to face reality, and reality sucks.
The
you know.
world we've known has been the world that we were born into and that we lived in. So
Yeah.
we can't imagine a world without us. That's
Yeah.
the problem. Is
Yeah.
it's very difficult to think of that. How could this place go on without me? And it is scary for a lot of people. For me, it's I think it's selfish. I think it's time to move on and let the next generation have their
I
chance
got
to
one.
hopefully make it better.
One local atheist leader, so-called, told me that he was in favor of abortion restrictions because at the time when his mother got pregnant, abortion was illegal, and he was adopted, and he was afraid. He told me this. He was afraid that if abortion had been illegal, he would have been aborted and he wouldn't be here. And somehow, you think, what? How do you even think? How can you not be here but be concerned that you're not here? I mean, you talk about irrational. That's about as far as you could get. So,
Well,
but anyhow,
yeah, let's
people-
kind of bring it around.
So
though.
here, he's even worried that if he wasn't here, he'd be worried that he wasn't here.
It's hard to get around some of that. I mean, people are we're always thinking about ourselves. It's very
Yeah.
difficult not to.
Yeah.
But going back to this idea of fear and with homosexuality, I think that a lot of the time people just have been unaware. And so we talk about the unknown, people are a little scared of it. And this huge turnaround has really, I think, come around through people coming out.
Yeah.
Your friends, your neighbors, the person you're in conflict with in a war, and you start to realize that there's this one thing that we're different about, our sexual orientation, but there is so many things that we still share that we,
Yeah.
and it's not that scary. They're not that different.
Yeah.
But I think that when you go to religion, religion always is saying how different these people are, how bad they
Yeah.
are, how tainted they are.
Well, I think atheists still have a problem there because people, it's like, well, people know gay people. Oh, they're really nice, and so okay, it's okay.
Well-
but I had this one friend. It's a really good friend, and we were raising our kids together and everything. And she got disabled, and I was helping her, taking her to buy groceries, all this, really nice. And then one day, she wanted to ask me a question, and she says, "Well, I want to know if you're going to tell me the truth," and because she says, "I know you're an atheist, and so I really don't know if you would tell me the truth, like I was going to be a liar or something." So even though she knew me really, really well, and I'm being really, really nice, still, somehow, if you're an atheist, there's something there that you have to worry about.
It's
There's
fundamental.
lacking some sort of a moral core of some kind.
But it's
When-
the fundamental teachings. That's when you go to the very,
Yeah.
very core of a lot of these religious indoctrinations is the people who are different. There's something wrong with them. There's something scary about them. And our book says they're bad.
Oh, well, it's because people
Or they're just-
equate religion with morality.
Yes.
And so if you don't have religion, well, how can you be moral? And I wonder, when you look at what religions do around the world, I'm wondering, how can you be moral if you've got a religion? I mean,
Well, the very fact that people
geez.
cherry pick certain things from the Bible means that they have a better sense of morality than
yeah.
what the Bible portrays.
Of course
If
they
the
do.
Bible was correct and true, then slavery's good to go.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
ready for slavery. But people know that that's wrong.
Yeah.
So how is a person able to go to the Bible and look at what a religious document is telling them and say, that's not right?
Yeah.
It's because they have their own developed sense of what's right and
There-
wrong. And
yeah.
we wouldn't exist as a society if we didn't evolve these thoughts of what's
Yeah.
right and what's wrong. If we all thought it was okay to murder and kill each other,
We wouldn't
we're
have
not,
existed.
we don't
gone
have this. We
extinct.
can't build anything.
We'd gone extinct long
If we
ago.
get along, if we have sympathy and empathy, and we
Yeah.
actually care for the people that are around us and we want to protect and take care of, that is
Yeah.
really what we get.
Yeah, so I think as religion loses its grip, not fast enough, but it is kind of weakening, and people are able to express their morality, their real morality, because if you strip away the religion, if you took away religion, it was like scraping the barnacles off the boat. You're just going to move along a little better.
Okay.
You don't have all this crap that, what is there about religion that is even helpful, except, okay.
I think I do believe it served a purpose a long time ago when we had these small communities. I think it brought people together. People, we see clouds and we see faces. We equate everything to be around us. The sun, the moon, it's all about us. And so if you had a person who knew the answer, I know the answer. Well, now you're in on the secret. You're in on the group.
Okay.
And it creates this
Okay.
unity, which I think...
There is nobody who ever saw this God or talked to this God, but they
Nope.
see that people are worshiping something, or thinking, and so they see an opportunity, and so they say, listen to me, and I will tell you what this God wants, like Moses going up the
It's
mountain.
control.
Most religions are started by con artists. They had no more of a God belief than I do, because Moses never went up to a mountain and talked to a God.
I think it
Yes.
was more brought about through ignorance.
No.
I-
Well-
I personally, I think it started through ignorance, and then we don't know, and so we're coming up with our own answers,
Yes.
and they're supernatural answers, and you have people in this group that now see, hey, I can take a position of leadership here.
Trevor, the people listening to the con artists are ignorant. The con artist knows exactly what they're doing. Okay, because
I think with a lot of modern-
Okay,
I think with a lot of modern-
Mary Baker Eddy started the Christian Science Church. She was involved in a carnival act with her partner, a guy named Quimby, and it was like a mind over matter, kind of a little magic thing, and about your mind can control, all that stuff.
Well.
So he dies. She turns it into a religion called Christian Science. Do you think she once ever believed in it?
Well,
She saw an
Scientology.
opportunity to take this carny hucksterism into a religion. How about Joseph Smith?
Joseph
Do you
Smith
think
was with Mormons, sure.
Do you think he didn't have no more of a God belief than I do, but he comes up with this cockamamie story about the angel Moroni, and then he invents this little Bible thing, and he comes up with this crazy story.
Gold plates you can't prove to ever have found.
Yeah.
And sure, the
Yeah.
evidence is all missing and gone, sure.
Yeah, and so that started by a con artist.
And I would say the same with
Those-
Scientology.
Yes. Well, no, he was actually more honest, because he
He
said
said he was going to make up a religion.
He said that that's how to make money.
L.
He
Ron
started a
Hubbard,
religion.
sure.
But when you look at the founders of the religions, see, they start out of, in a cult, the founder knows it's a fake. In a religion, that founder is dead. So now we have all the believers who don't know it's a fake because, okay,
Right, and suddenly
they believed it. And
Well,
so,
with these cult leaders, all of a sudden
Yeah.
the rules are for them. We talked the one who had all these young girls who was marrying.
Pope Leo X in the Middle Ages is reported by his secretary as saying, we all know how profitable this fable of Jesus Christ has been for our company. What does that tell you? Con artists.
It's a business.
Con artists.
It's a business.
Con artists. It's
I really don't know ancient times, thousands of years ago, what people thought, how they would perceive the world.
Nobody
There was
ever
no
talked to it.
alternative.
Nobody ever talked to a God or
There was
saw
no
a God.
alternative, though.
To say they did, they're either delusional, crazy as it could be, or they are con artists, or
Well,
just plain old carny
Okay,
huckster.
Then let's look. Why are people so easily taken?
They want to believe it. Yeah,
Okay.
You go. There are people who believe in astrology, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll go to fortune tellers. And they want to believe somebody tells them something, and it's appealing, so they want to believe it, and so they do.
And,
Okay?
and then it perpetuates. It continues on. Their children are
Yeah.
indoctrinated into this.
And it becomes a business, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a community thing, and if you're not part of the community, you're dead meat. And so there's all these social pressures, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right. Hey, we're going to start running out of time. Hey,
Yep.
we can't. I have to talk about our book here.
Sure.
Okay. Now, we're talking about these laws, like the ones that were, criminalizing homosexuality and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have laws throughout our whole legal system that are based entirely on religious beliefs, and that's the ones that control women and everything, and on our tax laws and our healthcare laws and everything, and the right to die with dignity, so that you're not in charge of your own death. Okay, the government is, and it's based on religious beliefs. And we have this book, Culture Wars. Burn this into your brain, and it's at Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. And this tells you about all the laws that we have in our books that do nothing, and when you get right down to it, but promote a particular religious belief. And when you look for a secular justification, you can't find one. Now, if you folks ever buy this book, and if you can find a secular justification, you let me know what it is, and I will refund your money. In fact, I'll refund your money double, because there is no secular justification, absolutely none. And so, you can go and get that and learn something. You'll be surprised at what you'll learn here. You'll be surprised. It really is a Christian nation when you look at our laws. They say it isn't, but boy, oh boy. So anyhow, so now we're encouraged anyhow by the change in the views of homosexuality, and even there's some other views that are changing. Sunday sales, that's just kind of a minor thing.
Oh, the blue laws.
Marijuana. Okay, marijuana.
We can talk about marijuana, sure.
Oh, marijuana is the next thing to go.
You can already feel it's almost like with gay marriage. A couple of states experimented with it,
and that's all based on religious beliefs that you're not supposed to enjoy yourself. You're not supposed to have fun. It's kind of based on life should be tough and you're not going to get out. Okay, it's so
sure.
And then the Sunday sales, which are all you're not supposed to work on Sunday. Now all these car dealers and liquor store owners, they say, but you can't make any more money because if you're just open another day a week, it just increases your overhead.
Well, that was.
But if they only want to work 6 days a week, why don't they close on Monday? And
it was an unintended side effect from a blue law, and so if we had a law that said businesses can only be open one day of the week, they'd save even more money. It was an unintended side effect, and it's just reality is that it was created to prevent people from getting alcohol or other substances on Sundays and to be in church.
Well, it started with you're not supposed to do any work on Sunday,
right.
But then I remember when most everything was closed on Sunday.
Yes.
And gradually,
very limited hours.
Especially the shopping centers came up.
The malls.
You had people wanted to shop on Sunday, so that took care of that. And now they want to buy booze and all that stuff, and instead of going over to Wisconsin, they want. So that's going to change, but it's another vestige of these old religion-based laws.
It's been a recognition that we own our own bodies. We're responsible for taking care of our own bodies. Laws should be concerned if we're hurting other people. We own our own bodies. And so we're looking at this now with the idea of gay marriage. I own my body. I can decide to marry another person. Gambling opening up more and more. I'm not a big proponent of gambling, but I don't see how it's illegal.
No, it's a tax on fools, really. Because
for the mathematically disinclined.
But there again, people live in hope, and they somehow it's wishful thinking, and I don't know what you do about it. But
let's even further out into the future. Some of these things that we're doing now that maybe we wouldn't consider necessarily barbaric. Like we look back at slavery, and for me, it's hard to understand how a person could own another person and think it's right. What are some of the things that you're thinking of that will be looked back as barbaric? Some of the things we do.
Well, I think eventually we're going to stop eating animals with cute faces.
I just think the whole treating of animals as a commodity is reprehensible, and it doesn't really feel bad to me, although I know intrinsically I think there's something wrong with how we treat these animals. And so in 100 years, 50 years, 150 years, I might be looked at as a barbarian. How can we treat animals like this?
They will come up with the chemicals that taste exactly like meat. I saw a Star Trek.
Star Trek.
They had meat, but it was
synthetic.
Fake. It looked like meat, but it was made with half our food is already made that way with chemicals.
Well, but it even goes back to the idea that God gave us this world and we can do it as we please. We can deplete the fish stocks. We can do all these things. We thought it was bountiful and boundless amounts, and we're starting to realize that no, we are ruining all these great resources.
I think it'll be a while before we start feeling sorry for the fish, though. I think we're going to, but the other animals, okay. Well, I think we've kind of run this subject to the ground, sort of, and it's
Sure.
been fascinating, and I'm glad you're here to talk about
Well,
this.
I want to thank you for
Yes,
inviting me to come
yeah.
out here, Marie,
So-
for your show. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, all right, everybody, that was our show for today. It's about loosening religion's grip. And like I said, it's not loosening fast enough, but we're getting there, and we keep working on it. So, thanks for viewing this show. And tune again. We'll have another show coming up pretty soon. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.